You boys be quiet down there!
Welcome back to PC-88 Paradise, the series where we talk about classic Japanese PC games for the NEC PC-88, and also discuss how they're related to other classic games that you may be familiar with. In the early 80s, Nintendo made a deal with Hudson to allow them to port some of their games to Japanese PCs, and even create some original games based on their existing titles. If you want to know more about this topic, there are some great videos out there on other channels. But today in this video, I'm going to concentrate on one of these titles specifically. The most common of the Hudson Nintendo games, in my experience, seems to be Mario Bros. Special, a new take on Nintendo's original Mario Bros. Game. It was released on so many different early 80s Japanese PCs it makes my head spin. But probably the most popular Japanese PC at the time, if at least by only a slight margin, was the NEC PC-88, and that's the version of Mario Bros. Special that I'll be playing today. So, my copy of this game is in pretty rough shape. It's not easy to find these Hudson Nintendo games in good condition, and opening it up, you can see I don't even have the manual.
If you need instructions, check out the enclosed instruction book.
The floppy disk is contained in a filthy Hudson Soft paper sleeve. The bright yellow disc is pretty cool, and I like the Hudson Soft logo in the lower right corner, printed directly on the disc casing. In addition to the yellow disc version I have, I've seen images of a black disc version as well that also has a slightly different cover. The PC-88 version was also released on cassette tape. I don't have a tape drive for PC-88, but maybe I'll have to change that someday. This game, by the way, is much older than any game I've covered before on PC-88 Paradise. Released in 1984, it's 5 years older than my PC-8801 MC system, which was the final PC-88 model. That's why, in order to run a game this old, I'm going to have to make a couple changes to the soft dips in the BIOS menu, like so. I'll talk later in the video about why I chose these settings for those who are interested. So now let's insert the... that sleeve. I'm not sure I even want to put this in my system. Let's keep the old cleaning disc handy, and here goes nothing. So, I didn't fake this or anything, it legit booted up perfectly on the first try. First of all, this music. This isn't FM synth, it uses the PC-88's square wave channels, which was the only sound available in the newest PC-88 model at the time, besides beep sound. The melody here is also identical for some reason to the stage clear music in Hudson's Load Runner for NES, which is also used as the title screen music in Championship Load Runner for Famicom. Let's start the game for some more familiar music. The gameplay also looks deceptively familiar at first glance, but let's look closer. This first stage has no enemies, and the goal is to get to the top level of the screen and hit these switches in order to open exits on the left and right sides. Each switch needs to be hit twice, and they gradually return to the closed position if you take too long. It's a lot harder than it sounds. You don't get a lot of extra time and have to hit each switch twice quickly before any of them go all the way back to their original position. If you manage to accidentally fall down, you're probably going to have to redo a lot of your work. The game actually has a time limit as well. If this bonus meter runs all the way down to 0, not only do you not get any bonus, but you also die.
Mamma mia!
Hey, did you notice that there's no floor? The screen isn't cut off or anything, this is all there is, in every version of the game. By the way, the PC-88 version of Mario Bros. Special doesn't have any gamepad support. It has to be played with the keyboard. I don't really mind playing this game with the keyboard though. It reminds me of playing the Apple II version of Mario Bros. As a child. They had a few copies of Mario Bros. For Apple II at school that they would let me play after finishing playing Spellevator or whatever. In Mario Bros. Special, Mario is controlled with 4 and 6 on the number pad and space to jump. This is a pretty typical layout on PC-88. For Luigi, you use D and G for left and right, and tab to jump. The second stage is completely different from the first. What's this?
Oh my god! Trampoline! Trampoline!
What do the trampolines do? Make Mario jump higher, of course. No, sorry, just kidding, they do this.
Stop jumping on me! I'm hurt!
Kids, once you get hurt, move aside and let other people jump.
This is how you take out enemies in this game. You can also make them disappear if you jump over them at just the right time, but the mechanic of hitting the enemies from below as in the original Mario Bros. Is completely absent in Mario Bros. Special. In fact, it looks kind of funny how Mario's head seems to get smashed when he hits a ceiling. Anyway, you need to take out a couple of enemies on stage 2 using only the trampoline method, before a platform appears at the top of the screen to take you to stage 3. This stage has conveyor belts and some moving platforms. The slowdown on this stage can be pretty bad, especially with 2 players. Aside from these being conveyor belts, they also act the same as the trampolines in the previous stage. I don't know, are these like trampoline conveyor belts? You can take out the enemies for points if you want, but the main goal is collecting these dollar signs. Eventually a ring will appear at the top of the screen and you collect it to win. Finally, there's a sort of bonus stage where you just need to collect all the dollar signs within the time limit. As always in this game, you have to remember that you can walk to the other side of the screen when determining the optimal path to collect them.
You're just not thinking fourth dimensionally.
Right, I have a real problem with that.
If you fail to collect all the icons, you'll get no bonus, but if you succeed, you'll get a huge bonus. After this, the stages loop, but don't turn the game off yet. The stages actually change quite a bit each time. The first stage with the switches now has enemies to avoid. This makes it much harder. The trampoline stage has new enemies and you need to defeat a lot more of them. Come on down to the trampoline, it's a fun! The conveyor belt stage also has more enemies and more slowdown and requires you to collect more dollar signs. Finally, the bonus stage now has moving floors, and the stages just keep getting harder and harder.
Whoa!
One thing I hate is if you hit Mario's head on just the edge of a ceiling while moving forward, he'll continue to go upward a bit, as if you made the jump, but then fall back down through the floor. The physics here just aren't right. Mario should really fall back down as soon as he hits his head. Another thing that can get kind of annoying is Mario's slow respawn time. Sometimes it will even result in an unavoidable death. So let's talk a bit more about the technical aspects of the PC-88 version. It says on the disc that it was intended to be played on either the very first PC-88 model or the second, which was called the Mark II. Both these models had only 4 MHz CPUs. Like many old PC games, the delays in this game depend on CPU cycles, and so as you would expect, the game will run too fast if you set the CPU speed to 8 MHz. Regarding the basic mode setting at the top, V2 is the newer PC-88 basic mode used by all the games I've covered previously in this series. If we try using this mode on Mario Bros. Special, again the game will run too fast even at 4 MHz, and the color will also be affected. That leaves us with the 2 V1 modes. V1H is the high-speed V1 mode. Using this mode will fix the color, but it runs pretty darn fast. I actually find the first stage to be really difficult like this. The third stage though, with all its slowdown, actually kind of runs better in this mode. Some players might actually prefer to play this way. In fact, I noticed that a lot of the videos of this game on YouTube seem to be using the V1H mode. But alas, the PC-88 models that existed when this game was released only had the slower V1S mode, so in my humble opinion, this is the only period accurate way to play. The slowdown is pretty ridiculous though, and to be fair, I've never owned actual hardware of either the original PC-88 or the Mark II, and can't say for sure that changing these settings on my MC make it accurately perform the way these earlier models did. Additionally, of these 2 early models, only the Mark II had square wave sound, while the original PC-88 only had beep sound. I found some disc versions of the game online which for some reason only seem to have beep sound, even when I play them on my MC. I don't know, maybe it's an earlier release of the disc version, or it might be taken from the cassette tape version. All I know is that the version I own has the square wave sound, and it sounds much better. So next is the part of the video where I talk about the different versions of the game for other systems. Man, there are a lot of versions of this game. The early 80s was the Wild West of home computers, and just like the US and Europe, in Japan there were so many different platforms available, most of which weren't compatible with each other. The most popular early 80s Japanese PCs, besides the PC-88, were Sharp's X1 and Fujitsu's FM7. The S1 was a pretty obscure PC from Hitachi. This version looks and sounds pretty similar to the PC-88 version to me. Many of these early Japanese PCs often produced very similar results, even though they each had their own unique architecture. And as long as I have a real PC-98 right here, I had might as well give the PC-98 version a try. PC-98 was also around in the early 80s too, by the way, but hadn't yet overtaken the PC-88 in popularity. My PC-98 is from the 90s, so it's never going to run at the right speed, even if I turn the CPU mode all the way down to low. Yeah, it's still too fast, but anyway, it looks like it was pretty similar to the PC-88 version. Also of interest are versions of the game for some of NEC's earlier PCs that existed alongside the PC-88. The PC-8001 series started in 1979 and predates PC-88. The PC-6000 series, on the other hand, was NEC's budget line of early 80s PCs. Here's Mario, and there are some other interesting looking games for this system too. Maybe I should make a PC-66 Paradise in the future. Nah. Let's play just one more version of the game. The Sharp MZ2200 version has weird colors, but otherwise plays just fine. Mario Bros. Special is a game I'm pretty happy to have on PC-88. While the NES Mario Bros. Runs so much smoother and is definitely the gold standard in home Mario Bros. Games, Mario Bros. Special is quite playable and offers several unique twists on the original concept, all dreamed up by Hudson. The game is challenging, but consistently makes me want to try again.
Luigi, we can't quit now. Remember the plumber's motto.
Who could forget? Don't take chances or you'll go down the drain.
No, when the pipe is plugged, keep plunging. Hasta power!
I just know I can get to a later stage or achieve a higher score next time. When I bought it, I really wasn't expecting the gameplay to be so addictive. I guess now I'll have to see if I can manage to hunt down Punchball Mario Bros. Or any of the other Hudson Nintendo games in the future. Until then, I'm sure I'll be taking out Mario Bros. Special for a quick bit of fun from time to time. Thanks for watching this episode of PC-88 Paradise. This has been your host, Mr. Jakes from Basement Brothers. I'm really happy to see all the new subscribers we've had recently, and I hope you'll all stick around. Please continue to recommend our videos to your friends if you like them, and I hope to see you back again in the next video.